What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores, the DLC, 20 bucks. How is it? I actually think it's really, really good. Now, I'm going to agree, actually, with some of the stuff. I was checking, the websites going around, and a lot of people talk about this game being kind of a step in the right direction or step in the forward direction for visuals and, like, spectacle, but it kind of lacks some of the depth. And I feel like that's true if you want to look at it that way. I think it's absolutely worth it. I think it's actually mind-blowing what they were able to do with this new land and with the visuals, which we'll talk about. But there are some shortcomings. The boss fights aren't too good. It's more about the visual look, kind of like pushing the boundaries of what you're able to do, rather than kind of the complexity of the boss fight. But it's more Horizon, and honestly, and I'm probably going to do videos on this over the next couple days, it is kind of essential. It's essential reading, it's essential viewing, whatever you want to say, for the next game. This was something I talked about leading into this game where, Frozen Wilds, this is not new. Frozen Wilds is kind of important to Horizon 2. If you don't play Frozen Wilds, that took a step forward in terms of what was going to happen in the second game. Burning Shores sets up the overall schematic of what they're going to need to do in order to, let's say, do something for the next game. It's pretty important. So you don't have to necessarily play it, I suppose, to get ready for 3, but I would watch, like, the story, like, watch the cutscenes on YouTube, because I do think it's kind of a essential viewing or essential playing. So, the positives. I absolutely, visually love this game. It is incredible. Now, I don't have great hindsight because I can't really remember, put myself back. What did it look like? What did Forbidden West look like? I feel as though the DLC looks better than Forbidden West, okay? I think the character models look better. I think everything looks more crisp. The water, I mean, look, I could sit here for about 10 hours and talk to you about the water. It is insane what they do. And every time I go under and I kind of remember, oh my God, it's not, like Assassin's Creed. I love Assassin's Creed's underwater stuff. I thought it was kind of revolutionary for the time. You think of like Black Flag and stuff like that. And there's some games with some pretty good water. But you go into Burning Shores or Forbidden West and you dive under, and it's a whole new world, and it just looks visually beautiful. The blue, the colors, the fluidity of Aloy swimming. This game kind of has almost like whirlpools or like vortexes where you can kind of get pulled into like a little slipstream. So it's pretty neat, some of the stuff they do in this game. It is so awesome going underwater. And then when you got the water wing, which is actually introduced way late. It's like the last mission, second to last mission of the game. Well, then you can go under, come up, go under, and I absolutely love that. So, I mean, no, honestly, visually, and the map is pretty big. Now, I think it's lacking, and I'll talk about that in a second. It doesn't have too much to do in it, but I mean, it's a playground nonetheless. It does have its zones where you got the machines so you can go and fight them if you wanted to. You could leave them alone, right? But it's got those areas, and just everything looks so good. The colors really pop, and because you're in it's islands, it's just mini islands, water surrounding it everywhere, right? There's a lot of blue, there's a lot of light to this game. You think about like the greens of it, there's some like vines and whatnot. There's the volcano kind of section, so there's a lot of red. The colors really pop in this game, and I absolutely love it. The cloud thing, by the way, they don't have you do anything. I found this really weird. They did a whole PlayStation blog on the clouds. I actually did. I flew through several clouds. I flew into there's a couple of clouds that are specifically like the thunderstorm clouds, where if you go underneath them, they'll actually rain on you, which I think is awesome. Nothing really happens. You just kind of go through it. I thought there'd be more to that, but there wasn't, but it still looks awesome. The clouds in this game, you look up to the sky and you say, those are some real clouds there. So, no, I mean, and this is the same thing for Forbidden West, right? It is a marvel to look at. Guerrilla Games is just probably the top of their class, especially, I mean, open world, right? Maybe Naughty Dog, but in terms of open world games, to make it look this good, it's absolutely insane. Now, does other things suffer because of that? I kind of think it does. So I'll say another thing as a positive. I've talked about the lore of Horizon just in general, and I like the story they're telling with Nemesis and the Far Zeniths and all this stuff. I think it's really interesting. I like the idea of what they're telling. However, in like base games, and I would say Forbidden West obviously being like the newest one. So in Forbidden West, I think it just becomes too much. There's so many different clans. There's so many different stories. There's all this stuff going on. and it kind of becomes too much at a point. At least to me, it becomes a little boring. And they talk a lot. I mean, there's so many questions you can ask characters. I think it becomes kind of too much. A benefit of Burning Shores being kind of more focused, right? It doesn't have 50 side missions, doesn't have too many main missions, is a lot of it's actually just the Quen. A lot of it's just Seika and Aloy. It's very condensed. It's very narrow. So when they're telling you the story of the tribe, or you're talking about this, this incoming threat, it's just more simplified, I feel like. Also, actually, it's simplified also in a way because Aloy is trying to explain it generally to people that aren't kind of caught up yet, right? So, like, these Quen don't really know what's going on. Seika herself doesn't know what's going on. Aloy's actually hiding it from her so that she doesn't have to tell her. So once Aloy kind of gives them the primer, it's like, okay, you're really simplifying what's going on, kind of what happened in Forbidden West, but also what's going to happen in the third game. You're simplifying it for them, but in turn, you're actually simplifying it for us as well. So I actually really appreciate it. It's a pro-con. I don't necessarily think there was enough in this DLC. We'll get there in a second, but there's that as a con. But as a pro, it's like, well, what is there? I actually think, is, at least from the storytelling and characters, I think is really good. I think even side characters that you meet in missions that maybe you'll talk to like one time beyond it, and that's kind of it, I actually really like them. Whereas oftentimes in Forbidden West, they become very forgettable. You can name me some of their names, you know what I mean? You really can't, right? This game, I think, is a little bit different. I think some characters that you just find in a mission, they're cool. There's a little bit more personality. Like, I think Seika brings out a little humanity in Aloy where she acts. I'm not saying she doesn't act like a human being. I think she does a lot more in Forbidden West than probably Zero Dawn. But I think Seika helps because I think it just kind of makes it a little bit more like calming for everybody. So you have that. So the story, I'd say, is pretty good. The boss fights, again, pro-con. Con, the design of them, like how you take them out, like, there's not much to it. There really is not that much to it. In terms of, like, how they look, how they move, what they're doing in terms of size and scope. I don't want to spoil things, but I do want to talk, and it's in the trailer, so I feel like it's okay, because I won't show the ending. That Horus fight, the Metal Devil. So you do fight it, and it is incredible. Now, it's incredible largely for the sense that it's just so big. It's taking up so much of the screen. It's stomping in water. It has all these tentacles that it's moving, or arms, whatever you want to call it. It's moving around. It is a visual, like, masterpiece. Okay, it is really cool. How you defeat it, it's simple. It's actually, like, I kind of like the simplicity of that one. I'd say there's some other boss fights where it's, which I won't really get into, where it's like, like, it's just, this is pretty common in games. You're not doing anything new. It's more of, again, like, the visual appeal of it. So there's those kind of things. I think the plan for Burning Shores was to push it on the PS5. Let's get this thing on PS5, and let's show if we had untapped potential. We don't have to limit ourselves with a PS4. What could we do? We'll do this. I think that was the goal of the entire game. Now, I've talked multiple times now, I've alluded to the lack of things to do. So, again, what's odd is it is such a big map. Like, it is legitimately a pretty sizable map. There's a few things. So, there's a couple side missions, but by a couple, I do not mean many, okay? There's very, very few side missions in this. The main missions, they are long and they are meaty. So, it took me about 6.5 hours. I would say the main missions are about maybe 5.5 in all, if you just did the main missions. So that's like the time breakdown. There's a cauldron, so that's one of those like dungeons where you go through and all that. There's one of those. Those are pretty meaty, right? Those can last a while. And then there's a relic, like the ruin, that you have to solve a bunch of puzzles to get to. There's that as well. But beyond that, there's just like the stations, the hunting grounds, basically, of the different machines. So that's pretty much it. Now, again, I could probably go through clouds for like ever. I could probably dive in water like forever. There is depth to it, but it's more of like a visual thing. Let's see this new area, this big area, that you've done that looks so visually good no matter where you are in it. But it doesn't have too much to do into it. And I was kind of expecting a little bit longer, I'll be honest. I'm actually very okay with the length because of all the other games coming out. I kind of didn't want to spend like 50 hours. I'm not asking for like 50 hours for Burning Shores. But you look at Frozen Wilds, I believe this game will be shorter. Like when the averages are totaled and, how long to beat gets their hands on this and all that. Well, everybody putting the information into that website. I actually think this game is going to be shorter than Frozen Wilds, which is odd because Forbidden West is bigger and longer than Zero Dawn is. So you'd expect that DLC for it would also be bigger and longer than Frozen Wilds. Talking about characters really quickly, I don't want to just glide by or forget about Seika, because obviously she's a huge part. She was shown in the cover art for this game, and then obviously they gave her name, and it's like, oh my god, they finally did it. They talk about how important she's going to be, right? Like she's going to be this companion with Aloy for the story, and it's like, oh, they're not kidding, because she's in I believe every main mission. Once you meet her, she's in every main mission, and she's really, again, I think she's really cool. I like a lot of her backstory. I like the thing that they're doing with her sister. Her and Aloy, I think, have good chemistry together. Again, there's a lot of pretty solid characters like Seika. I did a tweet about Sylens. Sylens is in it. I think he's phenomenal, and he's really important. We've talked about what do they do, with Lance passing on, what do they do with Sylens for 3? He's so important already in the games that they've done. Is he going to be important in 3? Oh, yes. I mean, you look at his scenes that they do with him in Burning Shores, he is vital. He's vital to the future. So what you do there, I literally have I have ideas. I don't know which one's the right idea. I'm sure they'll pick what they feel is right, and we'll just have to kind of go from there. But I think this is an overall really good DLC. Some of the, I'd say, visual, hey, focus on this, but hey, maybe we kind of shortchanged you over here. That's the biggest issue with it, I'd say, overall. But I do think it's kind of required reading or watching it in terms of the story. I think the base story, I think the main quests, right? If you just play the main quest through, I think it is very high quality storytelling. I think some of the areas, you go through kind of a dinosaur almost exhibit towards the end. I won't give too much away there, but it's really cool. It's fun. It feels like a Last of Us thing where they would go through a museum. That kind of it's a side entry where there's a lot of conversations between two different characters, right? It's like that. I think they do a really, really good job. Actually almost poking fun at themselves, right? Because dinosaurs, they talk about the similarities between the dinosaurs and the machines. So kind of a little jabbing almost at themselves. It's really, really cool. So there's some absolute standout moments. Visually, the entire thing is a standout moment. The story, a lot of the characters are extremely good. It's more of, I guess it's what they're focusing on. They do really well. What they didn't focus on so much is basically not there. I think it's worth it. $20, even if you put 6-7 hours into it. I think people can put more than, that amount of time. But even if it's an under 10-hour thing, $20 I think is still a pretty fair price for it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.